Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, today's video, I'm going to be going over the key essential things that you need to know in order to manifest your desired reality. Now, we all want to manifest some sort of aspect in our lives, whether that be a more positive, prosperous life. We wish to manifest some sort of abundance, whatever that abundance is. We wish to manifest a certain partner or a certain relationship, overall family, happy, prosperous family dynamic. Whatever the case may be, we all want to manifest some sort of aspect within our lives. But there are some key essential things that you need to know and that you need to materialize and that you need to ingrain within your own mind in order to manifest whatever you want in your life. And I'm going to be going over those key essential things in this video. All right, so let's not waste any time. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first key essential thing that you need to take note of and that you need and that's required in order to manifest is self-discipline. Now, self-discipline is very important when manifesting your desired reality. Now, think of the ancients, the ancient mystics, the ancient people during the ancient times, right? When they were considered the ordainers of destiny. They were able to manifest just like that through the use of their mind. Now, it takes a certain level of discipline, self-resilience and self-constraint in order to manifest whatever they want, in order to manifest whatever you want, right? Think of the Indian mystics or the Buddhist monks, right? They require and they implement a certain level or a certain amount of discipline into their life, whether it be through meditation, breath work, having a certain diet, eating one meal a day, all these sorts of different things. They implement and they implement these self disciplines into their regimen, into their daily life, right? Going outside, exercising, right? Whatever the case may be, having a certain amount of discipline and having a certain regimen within your life is key and vital in manifesting your desired reality, right? So there's this quote from this book that I've been reading currently by Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Now this ties in perfectly to the concept of self-discipline, right? So Sun Tzu states that the consummate or the consummate leader cultivates the moral law and strictly adheres to method and discipline. Thus, it is in his power to control success, right? So having that self-resilience, having that resilience, and having that self-discipline to, to not do the things of this world, right? We see in our everyday lives, we see people, they may be eating certain foods or doing certain activities that we have been accustomed to. And then once we feel like we're being alienated by doing all these sorts of different activities that the average person is not doing, we tend to slip up. We tend to fall back into our old ways, right? But we have to realize that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, right? People say that, God rewards the most disciplined. God rewards the person that's, fasting from food or fasting from social media and technology. The universe rewards the person who is the most disciplined, who is the most grounded, right? Because you're making a sacrifice. You're ultimately making a sacrifice, right? Straying away from everyday activities, straying away from things that the average person is doing on a day-to-day basis, right? So when we are sacrificing and eliminating certain things from our lives, is going to benefit us in the long run. We tend to think in the short term and not the long term. But once we cultivate this self-discipline, then we realize that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's a reward at the end of the race, You see what I'm saying? So it's always worth it. We have to realize that it's always worth it. Everything, where it's only benefiting us in the long run. It's only beneficial to our well-being and our mental, physical, and spiritual, right? So come up with a daily ritual. Now, when I say ritual, most people tend to believe there's some sort of black magic or casting a certain black magical spell or something like that. A ritual could be, something that you are doing on a day-to-day basis. Exercising, some form of physical exercise could be a form of a ritual. Or, pouring libations to your ancestors or to the gods or goddesses. That could be a form of ritual. Meditating, having some sort of affirmation or chant or prayer. All these things can be some form of a ritual that you can utilize within your day-to-day life, right? So these things can help you, stay focused and having that frame of mind to where it'll help you to achieve your goals and to achieve your dreams and help you stay focused on the task at hand and helping you build that self-discipline. So the second key essential thing is identifying opportunities / blessings in your life, right? So many of us, we tend to, we may focus on the negatives, the negative aspects of ourselves, the negative aspects of life, the negative aspects of our family, our parents, things of this sort, right? And we tend to focus on the negatives instead of the positives. But when we identify the blessings within our life, when we identify the opportunities that are arising in our lives, then we can start to focus on and building up that manifestation power, that manifestation abundance, that overall abundance that we have in our lives. So, for example, we may tend to focus on, the bills that we got to pay, certain bills that are coming up, and you're saying to yourself, I don't have the amount of money to pay these certain bills, or these bills keep occurring, these bills keep coming up, and I don't have the resources, I don't have the money, or I'm just sick and tired of these bills altogether. But when we think of it from a positive aspect, say for instance, the light bill comes up, right? And by paying the light bill, I get to have more light in the house, right? The lights get to stay on in my house to, do what I have to do in order to complete certain tasks. Or I have to pay this water bill. And by me paying this water bill and by me having the resources and having the blessings and the resources and the money to paying this water bill, I get to have the water going, right? To have good, clean water to wash my dishes, or good, clean water to, water my garden, or water my yard, or, any of these sorts of things. When we think more on the positive and think more of the blessings that are coming up and the blessings that we all have, because not everybody has this opportunity. Not everybody has, the running electricity, running water, all these sorts of different things. Not everybody has these blessings and opportunities. So when we focus on these opportunities and focus on these blessings, identifying these blessings and identifying these opportunities in our lives, then we can stay grateful. We can stay, abundant, having this abundance mindset. Because being abundant is not some quirky, thing that a lot of spiritual people talk about. This is a frequency hack. When we focus on the positives, focusing on the blessings and opportunities, this is a frequency hack to hijack us into that manifestation process. So identify more blessings and opportunities in your life. Right? So the third key essential thing is speak words of blessing. Now I have a lecture on this. I'll leave that link down in the description if you guys want to check that out. So in that video, I talk about the power of your words. Not only the power of your words, but the power of your thoughts. And the power of your thoughts plus the power of your words will lead to that manifestation, right? Because your words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Your words are very powerful. Your words are able to permeate throughout the throughout the Earth's atmosphere and also into the universe, right? So when you speak these affirmations, when you speak these blessings, when you speak positive affirmations and positive blessings, speaking positively about yourself and all these sorts of different things, it's able to, you know, like I said, permeate the atmosphere, permeate the universe, right? Because these words that you speak have a certain resonance frequency within them, right? They cast frequencies, and once these frequencies are able to permeate throughout the universe, it comes back to you, because the earth, because as above, so below, right? Because you are a reflection of the universe, and the universe is a reflection of you, right? When you speak negatively about yourself or speak negatively about someone else, that tends to mirror back at you, right? Because the universe only responds to your actions. The universe only responds to your words, and the universe only responds to your thoughts, right? So think of you as the universe, because you are the universe, right? Because your words have power and your words have spells. So always pay attention to always, be cautious and be aware of the things that you say and the things that you talk about, right? Because you don't want to be speaking in a negative manner. You always want to speak in a positive manner. Speak highly of yourself. Speak in abundance. Speak of blessings. Speak of opportunities, right? And this will drastically change, your subconscious mind. Reprograms your subconscious mind, and you're able to, kick that manifestation gear into high drive. Next key essential thing is make use of your talents/gifts. Now, when we have a certain level of talent, or we identify the gifts that we may have, whether it be, teaching, like what I'm doing, you could be, you could be a herbalist, you could be a cook, right? Or whatever it may be. You may be an author, you may be a musician, you may be able to write music, you may be able to write books. Whatever your gifts and whatever your talents are, we need to be able to identify these, right? And once we're able to identify these talents and these gifts, then it's important for us to make use of these talents and these gifts. Because when you're able to identify your gifts and talents, it's no use when you're not able to put them into good use. If you're not able to utilize them in a certain manner. Just like with knowledge, for example, you have all this knowledge, you have all this, this knowledge within your mind and these life experiences. But what's the use of having them when you're not able to utilize them? See what I'm saying? So being able to identify the gifts and the talents that you have, and being able to produce them into reality, right? These are the key things in order to kick your manifestation gear into high drive. So be sure to, if you don't know what your gifts and talents are, I suggest, you ask yourself questions. What are you good at? What are some things that you enjoy, and what are some things that you are good at? They're able to help you, make money, and to help, help humanity in a certain way. What are some things that you are good at? What are some things that you are, that are beneficial to you? Not only beneficial to you, but beneficial to humanity. Something that you enjoy, something that you love doing, something that will, make you happy and to, drive you in a positive direction that will help humanity and help you accumulate a certain amount of income. Next key thing, be the best you can be at whatever station the universe has placed you. Now this ties a little bit into that last point, right? So once you're able to identify your talents and your gifts, it's important to, be the best you can be at whatever talent that is. Be the best you can be at whatever gift that is. Strengthening your qualities as a person, strengthening your craft, whatever that craft may be. Like I said, a herbalist, a teacher, a musician, a cook, a nutritionist, a fitness expert, whatever the case may be, whatever gift and talent that you have that can help people and that can help humanity, always be willing to work on that craft. Always be willing to, establish yourself, to keep working on the thing that the universe has placed you in, right? So, if you're a herbalist, coming up with certain, herbs and medicines and, things that can, benefit people biologically, mentally, physically, right? Being a cook, being a chef, coming up with recipes and different food items and food groups to where you're able to help people on a biological level, a physical level, a mental level, and a spiritual level. So always work on your craft, or always work on the station that the universe or God has placed you in. Whatever your unique talents and gifts are, always be working on that to the fullest. Next key thing, exercise your power of choice. Right? So we all, when we come to a certain direction in our lives, when we come to a certain intersection in our lives, and we have, different choices that we have to make. Say, for example, right, you have, you can either have the choice of eating this certain amount of junk food, right? It may taste good and it may satisfy you within that present moment, but think about the next day ahead, when you feel all sluggish, when you feel all lethargic, when you feel, weak and tired and things of that nature. Or you can go with this apple, you can go with these fruits, you can go with these vegetables, right? They may not satisfy your sweet tooth, they might not satisfy your taste buds versus the junk food, versus the candy, but think in the long term, think in the long run, these food groups and these food items will be able to help you, in the long run, right? Because the body necessarily doesn't care about the food that you eat. The body only cares about the nutrients that's contained within the food, right? So we don't think about these type of things. We're always trying to, satisfy our taste buds. But when we get into the mode and get into the habit of eating healthier foods that are good for our bodies and good for our minds and good for our souls and spirits, then we start to, the subconscious takes in and takes on these habits and these traits, right? So think of, exercise your power of choice. Sit back and, examine yourself when you come into, a two-way section. Think of yourself at a two-way section. Will this decision benefit me in the long run, or this decision will benefit me in the long run? Think about these type of things. You have this thing that will satisfy you within the moment, but will this really help me? Will this really ultimately help me, drive me into that certain manifestation that I always wanted? So think about these things. Next key thing, taking a step of faith. Okay? So when I speak on faith, we have to have a certain level of faith. We have to have a certain amount of faith in order to manifest what we want in our life. So most people, we don't have that certain amount of, faith in ourselves, right? And when we don't have faith in ourselves, we don't have faith in the infinite. We don't have faith in the source. We don't have faith in the cosmos, right? Because the universe, God wants best for you, right? We have to realize this, that the universe wants best for you. And when we take that step of faith, when we step into that faith of the unknown, that's when things start to manifest in your life. That's when things start to take place within your life. And I've noticed this, throughout my life so far as well. Okay? So when we, don't have trust in ourselves, when we don't, have that faith in ourselves, when we don't believe in ourselves, when we, come up with certain excuses to how we can't accomplish this thing, or we can't, make a certain amount of income in our lives, when we can't, build up that physique, or we can't, have this certain relationship within our lives. We might not think we are not capable of this certain person. I might not be the best husband, or I might not be the best wife. I might not be the best father for my kids. I might not be the best mother for my kids. When we start to have these doubts in our minds, then we tend to believe these things, right? When we take a step of faith, when we take that leap into that faith, then that's when things start to come up in our lives. That's when things start to manifest at a faster rate in our lives. Because most of us, we tend to become scared. We don't have that belief in ourselves, so we take a step back and we don't have that belief in ourselves. We fear the unknown, basically. We fear the unknown. We don't trust in the unknown. We don't trust in the unseen. But once we have that trust in the unseen, once we have that trust in that in the unknown, then that's when we become strong individuals. That's when we become strong-minded, strong-spirited, strong souls. Right? So always take that step of faith, whatever it is. If you're making a certain decision in your life, whatever the case may be, taking a step of faith is always a prerequisite to manifesting your desired reality. And last but not least, the key essential thing required or needed for your manifestation is developing self-worth. Now, I've touched on a little bit of this in the other key points. Having self-worth, loving yourself, believing in yourself, achieving that God level, achieving that goddess level, having that mirror reflection of yourself, right? When you're looking in the mirror, do you like what you see in the mirror? Ask yourself this: do you like what you see in the mirror? If you don't like what you see in the mirror, then that's an indication that you need to, take on a new identity, right? When we are, when we're not happy with our current selves, when we're not happy with our current life, right? We need to shed that old energy off. That's what that is that's old energy and old frequency, right? When we, try to become a new version of ourselves, that old energy and that old frequency doesn't want to let you go. That old energy and that old frequency doesn't want to let go of you. It wants to stay attached to you. It wants to stay close to you because it's comfortable being in this certain amount of energy, being in this certain frequency, being in this certain identity, being in this certain image, right? But practicing, doing visualization, practicing affirmations, looking at yourself in the mirror and telling yourself that I am the best version of myself. I'm going to be this next version of myself. I'm letting go of this old frequency. I'm letting go of this old image of myself. I'm letting go of the old shredded skin. I'm shedding skin. I'm like a snake. I'm shredding this old skin of myself, and I'm becoming a new person. I'm becoming a transformed new person, right? So when we start identifying ourselves with this new version of ourselves, having that certain identity shift, having that certain identity of ourselves, and looking at ourselves in a totally different way, then that's when that manifestation starts to kick into high drive. So it's always important to have that self-worth, right? Always developing that self-worth every single day, because it's not going to happen overnight, because that's unrealistic for me to say that. It's not going to happen overnight, right? We're always going to come up with challenges, facing challenges, facing and dealing with certain situations in our lives, but it's all about the process. At the end of the day, you always hear people say it's all about the process. It's not about the journey. It's not all about the destination. It's the journey, right? So when we focus on, cultivating self-worth, cultivating self-knowledge, loving ourselves, giving ourselves appreciation for what we've done so far, how far we came, right? Then that's when we start to develop that, healing our emotional body, because there's a physical body and there's an emotional body. Think of your soul as the emotional body. When we start to heal our traumas, when we start to heal blockages within ourselves, the blockages within our chakras, when we start to focus more on our emotional body, healing ourselves from our emotional body, and that's when we start to develop that self-worth and that self-love about ourselves. So always take the time to heal yourself, focus on your emotional body, physical body, and cultivating that self-worth and that self-love. All right, so these are the key essential things that you need for manifestation, right? Having that self-discipline, right? Having that self-discipline to, you know, focus on what you need to do and focus on the task at hand. Self-discipline is always key. Identifying opportunities and blessings in your life. Speak words of blessing because your words have power and your words cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Make use of your talents/gifts, whatever your gifts and talents are. Always utilize them to the fullest. Be the best you can be at whatever station the universe has placed you. Exercise your power of choice. We always have choices. Always make sure to pick the best choice that will benefit you in the long run. Taking a step of faith. Always having that faith in God. Always having that faith in the universe. Having that faith in the unseen, that it will guide you and lead you towards that manifestation, right? And developing self-worth. Always having that self-worth and always having that self-love and that positive, healthy self-image about yourself, right? So hopefully this video helps you out, guys. Good luck, blessings, many blessings to you on your manifestation, whatever they may be. All right? So till next time, and always remember, all power resides from within, and always keep the faith because God and the universe is always working for you. Take care, guys, and God bless.